Here we go. So another new video concept here, guys. I'm going to try and do these videos like fairly regularly. But this video today is our first Mythbusters video. Now, I love Mythbusters as a series. I don't know if you've ever watched it, but it's a blast to watch. It's basically a show where they'll take like a cliche, you know, and then prove whether it's actually true or not. I'm going to do the same with NBA 2K22 MyTeam. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it's false. So if you see the title like this video is, like, do average players, you know, have to use underpowered cards, basically. I'm not saying that that's definitely the case. We're actually going to think about it, all right, during the video and then reach a conclusion at the end. But one thing that's for absolute sure right now is there is this idea that you don't need to use high tier cards in the game. Now, here's the issue with it. Most content, and I do mean most at the moment, is geared towards 0.1% of players in this game. Now, this is going to be a controversial statement, but the vast majority of 2K players think they're better at the game than they are. Like, my win ratio across all game modes this season is about 90%. That's literally where we are. But I'm not good at the game. I'm not that level. I think it's kind of divided by like that 0.1% who are your comp elite players who will get the best out of any card. Any card. Like, you watch Ty Debo do a gameplay on any card, and it's going to look better than any card I've ever used in a game. Like, there are levels, right, to this that change the conversation depending on where you fit in. Then I think there's like 5% at the top who are really good at this game, that know how to get the most out of it. And when we talk about cards these days, we talk about the same few things, right? We talk about their jump shot, we talk about their size up, we talk about their escape. Guys, the vast majority of people that play this game are not using these signatures. I do, but I use them sporadically. I'm not like a dribble god. I'm not like a dribble cheeser. I'm not that guy. I play very kind of straight in terms of how, you know, if you watch one of my gameplays, there's not a lot of cheese that goes on. Okay, I might, you know, Pro 2 with Curry now and then, or harders behind the back now and then, but I'm not going to stand there just spamming dribble moves to make the most out of all the things we talk about. So why in content are we focusing on something that 0.1% of players will actually get the most out of, and 5% will use to some extent? Because the other 95% of people are not using any of this. I mean, they're using the jump shot, sure, but they're not using the majority of this. It's a fact. So, when we then do content saying a card like Denny is just as good as, you know, an elite dark batter, is that true for that 95% of people? Because the question we need to answer is, do average players need OP cards more or less? The idea is, because they're average and they're not going to get the most out of this card, or an elite card, let's compare him to, I don't know, let's compare it to Ben Simmons, right? An average player is not going to get the most out of this card. That's the concept. So you might as well get this one, because it's 1k. First of all, which is true, significantly cheaper. But, you know, whatever you're going to do with Simmons, you're probably going to end up doing with Denny. So I understand that logic. That makes perfect sense. That, you know, a typical average player is not going to get the most out of a Ben Simmons. I'm a person who didn't get the most out of Ben Simmons, right? I'm just going to put it out there. Like, I didn't get the most out of this card, didn't like his movement. He felt really clunky to me. I switched him out for Oscar and I'm having a much better time. But the idea is, you know, you just don't need him because you can get Denny for 1,000 MT. Okay, so the two things I agree with are the majority of players are not going to use the animations to the fullest extent. Like I said, comp players will. And he's cheaper. Like tactically downgrading, if that's what you want to call it, it's just way cheaper. So that all makes perfect sense. Here's the problem, right? I don't agree with this aspect of it, that he's going to give you 90% of what he gives you. There is just no shot. Now, Denny's like a very rare card, because I'm purposely choosing to talk about him because he is widely considered an elite point guard in the game when, you know, he's a diamond. He's 6'9", which is the main reason for that, right? So that's a consideration. But here's where it falls down. If you're an average player, badges are vital. If you're an elite player, if you're comp playing another comp player, badges are vital. If you're an average player playing an elite player, it doesn't matter. The elite player is going to win every time. But if you're an average player playing another average player, these badges, and more importantly, these tendencies are vital. They will separate two average players. And like I said, average, I'm talking about like 95% of players, right? Your typical, you know, casual 2K player, like you might semi-full-time the game or what, part-time the game. The badges are vital. There are cards in this game that you cannot get low, like, that get animations, that do things in games that you just simply cannot get low tier cards to do. And I want to give you an example here of LeBron, right? So people are talking about Juwan Howard as like a comparable small forward, right? You see this, right? You know, height-wise they're similar, wingspan-wise they're similar. Now that's the thing that people focus on way too much for me. Like, I'm using a point guard with a 6'3" wingspan right now. I hide him on defense. It's fine. Just switch your matchups. But the idea is Juwan's going to give you 85-90% of what this hero LeBron was. And I haven't chosen the invincible one. I've chosen the hero one for a reason, right? He's considerably cheaper. So LeBron has plus 228 in stats. Now the idea, what usually happens is you'll look at this and go, oh, what? So where are those stats then? So, oh, you know, it's hands. That's not important. Draw foul. That's not important. You know, 3 points only slightly better. Probably with a shooting and coach, I'll both be at 99. You know, passing IQ doesn't matter at all. So you look at this and you go, oh, none of this is important. In fact, they're very comparable cards. Then you look at the badges. Now, for an average player, this is now where this becomes important. Okay, you look at that first screen and they are comparable. I absolutely agree. You look at the badges and suddenly you're starting to see differences, right? Half Deadeye is a game changer. It is. You know, it's going to stop you getting closed out on threes. Difficult shots, important badge. Stop and pop, it's important. If you want to move and groove with your small forward, you need that badge. Juwan just doesn't have it. Circus threes, again, if you want to shoot a fade, LeBron's going to hit it. Juwan probably isn't. Clutch shooter late in game matters. Green machine matters. This is just talking about this area, but this is where it really, really matters. This is where it really matters. In fact, I would say these three areas, finishing, shooting, and playmaking, are generally the least important. Shooting is important, but it's so easy on next gen to knock down a shot with any card. I mean, we all play limited knocking down threes with gold cards at will, so their shooting is just OP on this game. So this stuff to me is less important, but it does make a difference. That's the first thing. This changes everything. There's 3 reasons why LeBron is better than Juwan Howard. Let's start with this, okay? So, you know, ball stripper's vital. Again, when you're an average player, what you're looking for these cards to do is to do more for you. Because you can't do as much with the card, right? Like, that makes perfect sense. If the idea is because you're average, you don't need LeBron, I would argue it could go the other way. I think you do need a LeBron because you need someone who's going to do this for you. If you're not going to get a user on-ball steal because of the skill that you have in the game, then the badges will start to do that for you. Defensive leader doesn't matter. Pickpocket, again. So those 2 badges will result in significantly more steals. That already takes us away from the idea of 90%. It immediately takes it away from the idea that Juwan's going to give you 90% of what LeBron does. Not true. There's other badges here that matter, but those 2 badges in particular. Now, we move on. Now, Juwan's got a good player build. It's the second thing. LeBron's player build is just obscene. It doesn't matter who my opposition point guard is, I put LeBron on them because there are intangibles about these cards as well. Now, I believe I'm in that 95%, right? I don't think I'm in the good tier or the elite tier. I think I'm like the top end of that 95%. I think that's where I sit. And LeBron gets steals for me. I don't need to do anything. I put him on the point guard and he will just get steals. He'll just get bumps. He'll get in lanes. He just does so much for you as an average player that a card like this just doesn't. And he doesn't. LeBron's the best on-ball defender in the game. In the game. And then tendencies matter as well. Now you can see here they're pretty similar, but they're not identical. When you start adding pickpocket and ball stripper to these tendencies, you get a player who's just going to do more for you on the court. Now, we've gone down this road over the last few years of the idea that, you know, budget cards will give you almost exactly what an elite card will give you. That's true if you're an elite player. That's true probably if you're in the top 5% as well, you can do that. If you're not in that top 5%, guys, these cards will do more for you. Now, does that mean you should pick them up? I don't know. Because like I said, these cards are way cheaper and they will give you something, but they're not going to give you 90%. That is a myth. That is an absolute myth. Like, there's just no scenario which one's going to give you 90% of what the best on-ball defender in the game does. And LeBron's not, like, expensive. He's not 2 million MT. He's, like, a couple 100k. If you've got that MT, you pick up LeBron, I guarantee you, you will get more wins. And it won't be, like, 10% more wins. You will get a lot more wins. Putting this guy as the on-ball defender in my team has shot up my win ratio by about 30%. And that's not an exaggeration. If you've seen any of my gameplays, you know. So, no money spent, all of this stuff is great. And it's an interesting concept and all of that. But I think we've just been gassing it for way, way too long. We've just been gassing it for way too long. Now, there are budget cards that do 90 to 95% of what these elite cards do. A good example of that is Joe Johnson. Now, he's, you know, cheap for a dark matter for sure. And he's amazing. He is amazing. Like, there's no doubt about it that a Joe Johnson will give you very close to what an Invincible Kobe will give you. There's not going to be a huge difference between those two cards. Like, someone like Danny Ferry as an Opal. Like, again, he's got things that you're looking for. He's got 6'10", 7'5" wingspan. But again, just the badges aren't quite OP enough for him to impact the game without you user controlling him and using skill to do it. Is he going to do what you need him to do just as a card on its own? I don't know. I've used him for a long time, this Danny Ferry, but I don't know. But there are plenty of cards. Another perfect example is Bobby Jones. So this guy's like 80k because of the event that's going on, which is an amazing event, by the way. Now, this is a card that you could argue is the top small forward in the game. He just happens to be 80k. Like, you know what I mean? He's not a budget card. If he wasn't available in the way that he's available, he'd be a few 100k, right? That we know. But because there's so many of them out there, because people are picking them up, I've already got 2, having played a couple of hours since he came out. He's pretty available. So, yeah, I'd be looking at those defensive badges. Absolutely. This budget card probably will give you as much as any other small forward. Probably up there with LeBron, right? If not better. I haven't used him enough, probably. But the question that, you know, average players don't need OP cards because they're not going to get the most out of that cards, I think is just false. I think if you're an average player, you need the card to do more for you. I think that's the conversation. And I just don't agree that, you know, a budget diamond is going to give you 90% of what a 35 half dark matter with elite tendencies is going to give you. Now, when it comes to SIGs, yeah, these things are important. But like I said, to certain players. Like I said, I use SIGs sporadically. Like, I will use, you know, Curry SIGs or Trey SIGs if I have those cards. Like, with Harden, I used to spam that behind the back. There's SIGs that I use, but I don't abuse, right? And comp players will abuse those things. So this whole conversation changes. But a reminder, that's like 0.1% of players, if not less. It's probably less. If you ask how many 2K players think they're comp, the answer's probably about 20%. But the actual reality of the people I play, I mean, just go back through my gameplays and tell me how many people you've seen me play. What have I done wrong here? That can get the most out of this guy's animations. I mean, how many of them even uses Scotty behind the back? I mean, it's one of the easiest animations to trigger. It's literally down and left, or right, down and right, on the right stick. How many people use it? Not many. I just don't believe he's going to give you... The fact that people think this is a top 10 point guard is literally, like, biased towards the price. He's not a top 10 point guard. Yeah, he's 6'9", that's great. But my point guard, like I said, is 6'3", with a 6'3" wingspan. And I'm taking Curry over him every time. And again, it's about those intangibles. Curry gets defensive animations that Denny doesn't. He just doesn't. Curry gets chase down blocks with a 6'3" wingspan. You know, he gets in those lanes. He gets bumpy. He will strip people. Like, he will do things that this Denny just won't. And I don't believe that that's where we are. Now, should you run a budget squad? Sure. If you just want to have fun with it, absolutely. And they will give you something. And if you're significantly more skilled than your opponent, you will beat them. But when it comes to 2 players at the same level, the cards do matter. The cards do matter, and it's because of what they will do for you. That's the video, guys. A bit of a different video, but the myth to me has been busted. I don't think it's legit that, you know, average players can just use any lower tier cards or, you know, significantly downgraded cards and have the same level of success or close to it. I just don't believe that. That's from my personal experience. You let me know what you think. That's the video, guys. Thanks for watching.